Some wars are fought with lawsuits. Some have money. This one started with a mop bucket and ended with a boardroom full of people who suddenly realized they could no longer afford their assumptions. Kendrick Hayes had been cleaning executive offices at Meridian Global Technologies for 11 months. 11 months of emptying trash cans filled with the evidence of decisions that moved millions. 11 months of being invisible to people who made more in an hour than he made in a month. 11 months of hearing his name mispronounced, his work dismissed, his presence treated like background noise in other people's important lives. He had a system: get in early, clean fast, stay quiet, do not make eye contact, do not offer opinions, do not remind the people in expensive suits that you exist as anything more than the person who keeps their workspace clean enough for them to ignore. But systems break, plans fail, and sometimes the thing you have been hiding becomes the only thing that can save people who never bothered to learn your name. Kendrick Hayes was 47 years old and angrier than he had been in decades, not the explosive kind of anger, the cold kind, the kind that builds over months of swallowing disrespect and cashing paychecks that barely cover rent, the kind that makes you count days until you have enough saved to walk away with your dignity intact. He had not always been a janitor. 15 years ago, he had been an international business consultant, specialized in Pacific Rim markets, spoke fluent Mandarin and conversational Cantonese, learned during 6 years working overseas in corporate expansion roles, built relationships with manufacturing partners, negotiated supply contracts, and facilitated deals worth tens of millions. Then the 2008 financial crisis hit. His firm collapsed. Jobs disappeared. The market for international consultants dried up faster than venture capital funding. He rebuilt, took contract work, freelance translation, cultural consulting for companies expanding into Asian markets. Decent money, unpredictable schedule, no benefits, no stability. 3 years ago, his mother had a stroke, needed full-time care. Medicaid covered some costs, but not enough. Not nearly enough. Kendrick needed a steady income, health insurance, predictable hours that let him coordinate care schedules. So he took the first stable job he could find, night custodian at Meridian Global Technologies, $16.50 an hour, benefits after 90 days, an overnight shift that let him handle his mother's daytime care appointments. Nobody asked about his background. Nobody looked at his resume past the employment gap. Nobody cared that the man mopping their floors had once negotiated a $23 million manufacturing contract in a language most of them could not speak 3 words of. The disrespect was casual, constant, the kind that people with money and power do not even recognize as cruelty because they have never been on the receiving end. Jessica Hartwell, VP of Operations, walked past Kendrick every morning without acknowledgement, stepped over his mop bucket like it was furniture. Once, a memo on the break room board reminded custodial staff to use the service elevator, not the executive elevator, because appearances matter to clients. Brandon Coulter, Chief Technology Officer, made jokes, called Kendrick my guy and chief instead of learning his actual name, asked him once in front of 3 other executives if he had figured out how the fancy coffee machine worked yet. Everyone laughed. Kendrick smiled like he was supposed to and kept cleaning. The CEO, Gerald Thornton, barely registered Kendrick's existence, walked past him dozens of times, never made eye contact, never said good morning, treated him with the particular kind of invisibility reserved for people who clean up after you. Have you ever been invisible to people you see every single day? Comment below if you have worked somewhere that treated you as if you did not matter. I want to hear how you handled it. Kendrick documented everything, not because he had a plan, just because anger needs somewhere to go and a notebook was cheaper than therapy. Dates, times, comments. The pattern was clear. They treated custodial staff like props, talked over them, talked about them like they were not standing right there. One morning, Kendrick was cleaning the executive conference room when Gerald and Jessica were reviewing a presentation, talking about an upcoming deal with a manufacturing partner from overseas. Big contract. Critical expansion. Everything is riding on this negotiation. The translator better not screw this up, Gerald said, reviewing slides. Last time we used Wilson Translation Services, they mixed up technical specs. Cost us 3 weeks of back and forth. I confirmed with them yesterday, Jessica replied. Their top person, 15 years of experience. We are paying premium rates for this. Kendrick kept his head down, kept wiping tables, kept being invisible, but he was listening. He always listened. You learn things when people forget you have ears. The deal was happening in 3 days. Tuesday morning. High-stakes negotiation with a manufacturing firm that could cut Meridian's production costs by 30%. Millions in potential savings. The company's expansion depends on it. Gerald was nervous. Kendrick could tell. The CEO kept rehearsing talking points, obsessing over details, snapping at assistants about scheduling, catering, and making sure everything was perfect. This deal happens. We can finally move forward with the product launch, Gerald told his executive team during a meeting, as Kendrick was cleaning around. This deal falls apart, and we are looking at layoffs by the fourth quarter. Layoffs meant Kendrick lost his income, lost his insurance, lost his ability to pay for his mother's care. So yeah, he was invested, just not in the way anyone in that room realized. Tuesday morning arrived. Kendrick was finishing his overnight shift when the chaos started. He was in the hallway outside the executive conference room when he heard Gerald's voice, loud and sharp with panic. "What do you mean she is not coming?" Jessica's voice was tight with stress. "Car accident on the highway. She is stuck in traffic. Says she will be at least 90 minutes late. The clients arrive in 20 minutes. Gerald's voice cracked. 20 minutes, Jessica. We cannot reschedule. They are flying back overseas this afternoon. This is our only window. I am calling every translation service in the city. We do not have time." Something slammed, probably Gerald's hand on the table. "This deal is dead. Months of work. Gone because we cannot communicate for 90 minutes. Kendrick stood in the hallway, mop in hand, anger in his chest. A decision was forming in his mind. He could walk away, let them fail, let the company collapse. Let Gerald learn what it feels like when the systems you depend on are suddenly not there for you. Or he could do what he had been trained to do, what he was good at. What he had been hiding for 11 months was that people like Gerald never looked close enough to see value in someone wearing a custodian uniform. He made his choice. Kendrick walked into the conference room. Gerald and Jessica were on phones. 3 other executives were frantically scrolling through contacts. Nobody noticed him. "I can translate," Kendrick said. Silence. Everyone looked up, stared like a lamp had started talking. "Excuse me?" Gerald's tone was confused, dismissive, already turning back to his phone. "I speak fluent Mandarin," Kendrick said, louder now, clearer. "I can translate your negotiation." Jessica laughed. Actually laughed. Not mean, just reflexive disbelief. "That is sweet. But this is an extremely technical business negotiation. We need a professional." "I am a professional," Kendrick said. His voice was steady, but anger was burning underneath every word. "I worked 6 years in international business consulting, facilitated manufacturing contracts in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Beijing. I speak Mandarin fluently. I know technical terminology. I know business protocol. I know exactly what you need." Gerald stared at him. "You are a janitor. Right now, I am the only translator in this building." Kendrick shot back. "Your clients arrive in 15 minutes. You can keep looking for someone who is not here, or you can use the person standing in front of you. Your choice." The conference room was frozen. Gerald looked at Jessica. Jessica looked at Brandon. Brandon looked at the clock on the wall. 14 minutes until the clients arrived. "This is insane," Gerald said, but his voice had lost its certainty. "We cannot trust our entire deal to the custodian. No offense. Plenty taken," Kendrick said flatly, "but you are out of options. So either let me help or watch your deal fall apart because you are too proud to admit you need someone you have been ignoring for 11 months. Jessica stepped forward. "You really speak Mandarin? Fluently? I can prove it in about 30 seconds when your clients walk through that door," Kendrick said. "Or you can test me right now. Pull up any business document you want translated, any technical spec, any contract clause. Try me." Gerald grabbed a folder, pulled out a manufacturing specification sheet covered in technical language, slid it across the table. "Translate the first paragraph." Kendrick scanned it, started speaking in Mandarin, smooth, fluent. Technical terminology flowed like he had been working in the language yesterday, not years ago. He watched their faces change. Confusion first, then recognition, then something that looked like shame but probably was not. "Where did you learn that?" Jessica asked quietly. "Does it matter?" Kendrick's voice was hard. "You never asked. You never looked at my resume past the gap in employment. You never wondered if the person cleaning your office might have skills you needed. You just assumed." Gerald opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "We need you for this meeting. Will you do it?" Kendrick looked at the clock. 12 minutes. He thought about his mother, about the care costs, about insurance premiums, about the choice between pride and practicality. Yes, he said, but we are going to have a very different conversation after this meeting is over. About my actual qualifications, about my pay, about how you treat people in this building. Understood? Gerald nodded. He did not look happy, but he nodded. Good, Kendrick said. Now somebody get me a chair at the table. Translators do not stand. The clients arrived exactly on time. 4 executives from a major manufacturing firm overseas. Expensive suits, leather briefcases, polite but businesslike energy. They bowed slightly. Gerald and his team bowed awkwardly. Then they saw Kendrick, sitting at the conference table, custodian uniform still on because there had been no time to change. One of the visiting executives said something in Mandarin, a question directed at Gerald. Confused tone. Gerald froze, looked at Kendrick. Kendrick translated smoothly. He is asking if I am part of your negotiation team. Gerald hesitated, then said, yes, this is Kendrick Hayes. He will be facilitating our discussion today. Kendrick translated. Then, I added something in Mandarin that made the visiting executive smile. One of them responded with what sounded like approval. What did you say? Jessica whispered. I told them I appreciate the opportunity to help build bridges between our companies. Kendrick said. Basic relationship protocol. You would know that if you had hired someone who actually understands the culture, not just the words. The meeting started, and Kendrick was flawless, not just translating words, translating intent, cultural nuance, business subtext. When Gerald said something too direct, Kendrick softened it appropriately. When the visitors expressed concern, Kendrick clarified without making it confrontational. When technical specifications got complicated, Kendrick handled terminology like he had been working in manufacturing vocabulary his entire career, because he had. Just not recently, just not in ways anyone at Meridian had bothered to notice. 2 hours, back and forth, questions, clarifications, negotiations on timelines, costs, and quality standards. Kendrick never stumbled, never hesitated, made Gerald and his team look competent, even though they were completely dependent on someone they had been. Treating like furniture for 11 months, the deal closed. Handshakes, smiles. The visiting executives looked genuinely pleased. One of them spoke directly to Kendrick in Mandarin. Long statement. Respectful tone, Kendrick responded. Then translated for the room. He says he appreciates working with someone who understands both the language and the business culture. He looks forward to continuing this partnership. After the clients left, the conference room emptied slowly. Executives congratulating each other, talking about next steps, already moving on like the crisis had been averted through their own competence. Kendrick stayed seated, waited. Gerald was the last to leave. He stopped at the door, turned back. That was impressive, Gerald said. Thank you. You are welcome, Kendrick said. Now we talk. Gerald closed the door, sat back down, looked tired suddenly. Older. You saved this company today, Gerald said. Probably saved my job too. The board was ready to replace me if this deal fell through. I know, Kendrick said. I hear things. You talk like I am not there. Gerald flinched. Fair. I want a different position, Kendrick said. International business liaison. I want a salary commensurate with my actual skills. I want an office. I want to be involved in negotiations with your overseas partners. I want my expertise recognized and compensated. That is a big ask. It is a fair ask. Kendrick corrected. You just watched me do work you were paying a translation service $5,000 for. I did it better. I did it with cultural knowledge your expensive contractor does not have. I did it while wearing a uniform that you people have been using as an excuse to ignore my value for almost a year. Gerald was quiet, thinking, calculating. You could have walked away, he said finally. Let us fail. Why did you help? Because I need this job, Kendrick said honestly. Because my mother needs care I cannot afford without insurance. Because walking away would have felt good for 10 minutes and cost me everything I have been working to protect. But do not mistake necessity for forgiveness. I helped because I had to, not because you deserved it. Gerald nodded slowly. I will talk to HR. We will create the position. Salary negotiable but fair. You start Monday. I start now, Kendrick said. And we are going to have company-wide training about how you treat support staff. All of them, not just me. The promotion went through in 2 weeks. Kendrick Hayes became International Business Liaison at Meridian Global Technologies. Salary tripled. Office on the executive floor. Business cards that actually reflected what he could do instead of what people assumed about him. He kept the custodian uniform, framed it in his office as a reminder. The company-wide training happened. Mandatory, everyone from executives to entry-level staff. Respectful workplace practices. Unconscious bias. The value of recognizing expertise regardless of job title. Some people got it. Some people rolled their eyes. Some people changed their behavior because they learned something real. Others changed because HR was watching now, and consequences existed. Gerald never became warm, never became a friend, but he stopped walking past people like they were furniture, started learning names, started saying good morning to the people who kept his building running. Jessica apologized, privately, genuinely, said she had been raised to see service workers a certain way and was trying to unlearn it. Trying was something. Kendrick's mother got better care, more consistent, less stressful. The difference between $16.50 an hour and $68,000 a year was the difference between survival and stability. He still got angry sometimes. Still remember every dismissive comment, every ignored greeting, every moment of being treated as if he did not matter. But he also remembered the look on Gerald's face when the deal closed, the moment when people who had underestimated him for months suddenly could not function without him. Sometimes justice is not about punishment. Sometimes it is about forcing people to see what they chose to ignore. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming impossible to overlook, and sometimes the person cleaning your office knows more than you ever bothered to ask.